The 1970s were a tumultuous time for American automakers. Gas shortages, emissions regulations, and a shift in consumer preferences created a perfect storm for some of the worst coupes ever produced in the U.S. While the decade gave rise to some memorable muscle cars, many others missed the mark, suffering from poor design, lackluster performance, and unreliable engineering. Let's dive into the 11 worst American coupes of the 1970s, vehicles that should have stayed off the production line.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 11, 1975 Chevrolet Monza Coupe. 1975 Chevrolet Monza Coupe, a vehicle emblematic of the challenges faced by American automakers in the 1970s. Designed as a sporty subcompact, the Monza fell victim to compromises in engineering, design, and market appeal. Let's explore why this car struggled to find success in an increasingly competitive automotive landscape. The 1970s were a turbulent time for the auto industry. Rising fuel prices, stricter emissions regulations, and increasing competition from Japanese and European automakers forced Detroit to rethink its approach to vehicle design. Chevrolet introduced the Monza to target the subcompact market, hoping to combine sportiness, efficiency, and affordability. However, the Monza struggled to meet these goals. On the surface, the Chevrolet Monza Coupe had a sleek and modern design. Its low profile, curved roofline, and sharp lines drew inspiration from European sports coupes, which Chevrolet hoped would attract young, style-conscious buyers. But this focus on aesthetics came at a cost. The Monza's compact exterior translated to a tight and uncomfortable cabin. Rear passengers had minimal legroom, making it impractical for families or groups. The sloping roofline further reduced headroom, creating a claustrophobic experience, particularly for taller occupants. Inside, the Monza's interior was plagued by hard plastics and low-quality trim. While higher trims attempted to add a touch of luxury, even these upgrades felt underwhelming compared to competitors. The trunk was small and awkwardly shaped, making the Monza ill-suited for buyers who needed practicality. Perhaps the most glaring flaw of the Monza was its powertrain lineup, which failed to deliver the performance or efficiency buyers expected. The base engine was a 2.3-liter four-cylinder that struggled to move the Monza's weight effectively. The optional V6 and V8 engines offered more power, but emissions controls significantly hampered their output. Stricter federal emissions standards in the 1970s forced automakers to adopt catalytic converters and other restrictive technologies. These reduced engine performance and reliability. Despite being a subcompact, the Monza's fuel economy was unimpressive, especially compared to smaller, more efficient imports from Toyota, Honda, and Datsun. Chevrolet marketed the Monza as a sporty subcompact, but its driving experience failed to live up to the promise. The Monza suffered from unresponsive steering and a suspension setup that struggled with body roll. Compared to imports like the Datsun 510 or Toyota Celica, the Monza felt outdated and uninspiring. The Monza's suspension wasn't tuned for comfort or performance, resulting in a jarring ride over uneven roads. When the Monza debuted, it faced stiff competition from both domestic and international rivals. The Ford Mustang II, although heavily criticized, offered better brand recognition and more refinement. Other subcompacts like the AMC Gremlin and Dodge Colt provided greater practicality or affordability. Japanese automakers were gaining ground with models like the Toyota Corolla, Honda Civic, and Datsun 1200. These cars were not only more reliable, but also more fuel-efficient and enjoyable to drive. Buyers often complained about the Monza's cramped interior, poor performance, and lack of value. Its build quality and reliability were also frequent points of criticism. While Chevrolet continued to produce the Monza through the late 1970s, it never achieved the success the company had hoped for. Instead, the Monza became a symbol of the compromises American automakers made during a period of rapid change and uncertainty. The 1975 Chevrolet Monza Coupe is a case study in how good intentions can go awry. Though Chevrolet aimed to create a stylish, sporty subcompact for a changing market, the end result was a car that fell short in almost every area: performance, practicality, and quality. For automotive enthusiasts and historians, The Monza serves as a reminder of the growing pains American automakers endured during the 1970s. Number 10, 1974 Ford Mustang II Coupe. 1974 Ford Mustang II Coupe, a controversial and much maligned chapter in the history of one of America's most iconic cars. While the Mustang II was Ford's response to a rapidly changing automotive landscape, it ultimately failed to live up to the expectations set by its predecessor, the original Ford Mustang. By the early 1970s, the muscle and pony car segments were facing significant challenges. Skyrocketing fuel prices forced buyers to prioritize fuel efficiency over raw performance. Federal regulations demanded cleaner engines, which often resulted in reduced power. Rising premiums for high-performance cars discouraged younger buyers. The original Mustang, introduced in 1964, had been a massive success, blending sporty styling with affordability and practicality. However, as market conditions shifted, Ford decided to rethink the Mustang. Unfortunately, their solution, the downsized Mustang II, sacrificed much of what had made the original so beloved. Ford's decision to shrink the Mustang was an attempt to align with the growing demand for smaller, more efficient cars. While practical on paper, the execution left much to be desired. The Mustang II was based on the Ford Pinto platform, a subcompact economy car. This resulted in a stubby, awkward appearance compared to the sleek lines of the first-generation Mustang. The coupe's short wheelbase and tall greenhouse gave it a top-heavy, unbalanced look. Ford attempted to retain some design elements from the original Mustang, such as the long hood and short rear deck. However, the smaller dimensions distorted these features, making the car look more like a caricature than a continuation of the Mustang legacy. The heavy use of chrome trim and oversized bumpers, mandated by new safety regulations, further detracted from the design. While Ford marketed the Mustang II as a luxury-oriented pony car, its interior felt cramped and featured cheap materials. Compared to competitors, it lacked the sporty or upscale appeal buyers expected. The Mustang had always been associated with performance, but the Mustang II fell woefully short in this area. The base engine was a 2.3-liter inline-four producing just 88 horsepower. While adequate for an economy car, it was embarrassing for a vehicle bearing the Mustang name. An optional 2.8-liter V6 offered 105 horsepower, while the 5.0-liter V8, introduced later, produced a meager 140 horsepower due to emissions restrictions. These engines paled in comparison to the high-output powertrains of earlier Mustangs. The Mustang II's Pinto-based chassis was never designed for spirited driving. The car suffered from vague steering, excessive body roll, and a harsh ride. Compared to rival pony cars like the Chevrolet Camaro and Pontiac Firebird, the Mustang II felt sluggish and uninspired. While the Mustang II was more efficient than its predecessor, it failed to match the fuel economy of smaller imports, such as the Toyota Celica and Datsun 240Z, which also offered superior performance. Despite its shortcomings, the Mustang II initially sold well, with over 385,000 units sold in its debut year. This was largely due to the public's appetite for smaller cars during the oil crisis, as well as the strength of the Mustang name. However, the car's reputation quickly deteriorated. Mustang loyalists were disheartened by the car's lack of power and sporty character. To many, the Mustang II represented a betrayal of the original pony car ethos. The Chevrolet Camaro and Pontiac Firebird continued to offer better performance and styling, maintaining their appeal even in the face of rising fuel prices and stricter regulations. Meanwhile, Japanese and European imports offered a compelling mix of efficiency, reliability, and driving enjoyment. The Mustang II is often cited as one of the low points in the Mustang's history, tarnishing the legacy of the nameplate. While it kept the Mustang alive during a difficult period, it failed to capture the magic of the original. The Mustang II is a cautionary tale about the dangers of compromising a brand's identity. While Ford succeeded in adapting to a changing market, it did so at the expense of what made the Mustang special. The shortcomings of the Mustang II paved the way for the third-generation Mustang, introduced in 1979, which brought back performance and driving excitement. The Mustang II's initial success demonstrated the importance of responding to market trends, even if the execution wasn't perfect. The 1974 Ford Mustang II Coupe was an attempt to navigate the challenging automotive landscape of the 1970s. While it sold well initially, its uninspiring design, poor performance, and lack of identity left it a disappointment in the eyes of enthusiasts and critics alike. The Mustang II's legacy serves as a reminder of the risks automakers face when prioritizing market demands over brand heritage. Number 9. 1978 Dodge Aspen Coupe. 1978 Dodge Aspen Coupe, a car that initially aimed to capture the attention of mid-size buyers with a mix of affordability and style, but ultimately fell short due to a range of issues. Introduced in 1976 as a replacement for the aging Dart, the Dodge Aspen was Chrysler's attempt to modernize its mid-size lineup. The Aspen and its sibling, the Plymouth Volare, were marketed as stylish, comfortable, and versatile alternatives to competitors like the Chevrolet Malibu and Ford Granada. The coupe variant in particular was intended to add a touch of sporty flair to the otherwise utilitarian lineup. However, by 1978, the Aspen Coupe's flaws had become increasingly evident, and it struggled to compete in a crowded market. The Aspen Coupe's styling was unremarkable, with a conservative, boxy profile that lacked the sporty appeal Dodge likely intended. Its upright grille and plain side panels made it blend in with countless other cars from the era, offering little visual excitement. The coupe's dimensions were awkward, with a short rear deck that didn't complement its relatively long hood and high beltline. Compared to sportier mid-size options, such as the Chevrolet Monte Carlo or even the Ford Mustang II, the Aspen Coupe lacked charisma. Poor attention to detail in the assembly process often resulted in misaligned panels, rattling trim, and uneven paint application. One of the Aspen's most notorious issues was its poor reliability. For buyers seeking a dependable vehicle, the Aspen Coupe proved to be a source of frustration. The Aspen, like many Chrysler products of the time, suffered from severe rust issues, particularly in the wheel wells and lower body panels. Many cars experienced significant corrosion within just a few years of ownership, a glaring problem that undermined its value. Frequent mechanical issues plagued the Aspen Coupe, including problems with the suspension, brakes, and electrical systems. Engines, while varied in size and power output, often suffered from inconsistent performance and reliability concerns. The base 225/6, while robust in earlier models, was hampered by emissions-strangled tuning. The Aspen earned a reputation for high warranty claim rates, which hurt Chrysler's already shaky reputation. For a coupe, one might expect at least some degree of driving enjoyment. Unfortunately, the Aspen Coupe failed to deliver. The Aspen Coupe's standard powertrains were underwhelming, with the base 225/6 offering just enough power for daily driving, but little else. Optional V8 engines, such as the 318 or 360, provided more power but were inefficient and didn't make the car feel significantly more exciting. The Aspen Coupe's handling was uninspiring, with vague steering and significant body roll that made it feel disconnected from the road. The suspension, though designed for comfort, often resulted in a floaty ride that lacked precision. Like many cars of the era, the Aspen Coupe struggled with fuel efficiency, especially when equipped with larger engines. While the Aspen and Volare initially sold well due to their attractive pricing and features, their poor reliability and rust problems caused sales to decline sharply. Rivals like the Chevrolet Malibu and Ford Granada offered more reliable options with comparable features. Meanwhile, imports like the Toyota Corona and Datsun 810 were gaining traction for their durability and efficiency. Unlike Dodge's more iconic models, the Aspen Coupe left little lasting impression on the automotive world. It's remembered primarily for its flaws rather than any significant contributions to the midsize segment. Despite its shortcomings, the Dodge Aspen Coupe serves as a cautionary tale for automakers about the importance of quality control and long-term durability. The Aspen's issues highlighted Chrysler's need for better rust-proofing and more reliable engineering, a lesson that, unfortunately, wasn't fully addressed until much later. The Aspen Coupe reflects the struggles of American automakers during the 1970s, as they grappled with shifting consumer expectations, stricter regulations, and rising competition from imports. The 1978 Dodge Aspen Coupe was a vehicle with potential that was ultimately undermined by poor design choices, rust issues, and frequent mechanical failures. While it aimed to offer an affordable and stylish midsize option, it failed to deliver on both counts, leaving it as a footnote in automotive history rather than a success story. Number 8. 1970 AMC Gremlin X Coupe. 1970 AMC Gremlin X Coupe. A car that dared to be different, but ultimately failed to find the right balance between innovation and practicality. While the Gremlin deserves credit for its unconventional approach, its design and performance left much to be desired. By the late 1960s, American automakers faced mounting pressure to create smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles in response to rising competition from European and Japanese imports. Enter AMC, a company already known for its unconventional thinking, with the Gremlin as its ambitious answer to the burgeoning compact car market. The Gremlin X Coupe, introduced in 1970, was marketed as a sportier version of this compact car, featuring unique graphics and a more powerful engine option. However, its flaws quickly became apparent. At just 161.3 inches long, the Gremlin was one of the shortest cars of its time, but this compact length came at the cost of practicality. The abrupt rear end, which AMC designers famously referred to as cutting the car off with a machete, made the car appear unbalanced. This design choice, while distinctive, alienated buyers who sought a more cohesive aesthetic. The compact dimensions left the rear seats cramped and uncomfortable, especially for taller passengers. The stubby design also reduced cargo space, making the Gremlin less practical for families or those seeking versatility. The Gremlin X Coupe attempted to add flair with stripes, decals, and unique badging, but these features did little to offset its awkward proportions. Compared to competitors like the Volkswagen Beetle or Ford Pinto, the Gremlin's look was more of a novelty than a selling point. While the Gremlin X Coupe featured a range of engine options, none of them provided the driving experience buyers were hoping for. The base model came with a 199 cubic inch inline-six, producing a modest 128 horsepower. This engine, while reliable, struggled to provide adequate acceleration. Optional engines like the 232 or 258 inline-six offered slightly better performance, but were still underwhelming for a car marketed as sporty. Despite being lightweight, the Gremlin's poor aerodynamics and gearing didn't translate to a nimble or exciting driving experience. While compact cars were expected to deliver excellent fuel economy, the Gremlin's six-cylinder engines lagged behind competitors, which often featured more efficient four-cylinder powertrains. The Gremlin X Coupe suffered from vague steering and excessive body roll, making it feel clumsy on winding roads. AMC attempted to balance cost and performance with a simple suspension setup, but the result was a rough and noisy ride. The Gremlin's quirky design attracted attention upon its release, and AMC's aggressive marketing positioned it as a different kind of car. The Gremlin X Coupe, with its sporty trim, appealed to younger buyers looking for something unique. Buyers quickly realized the Gremlin's compromises in space, comfort, and performance. Reliability issues, particularly with the carburetor and cooling system, further tarnished its reputation. In a market increasingly dominated by imports like the Volkswagen Beetle and Toyota Corolla, the Gremlin failed to stand out as a practical or reliable alternative. Even domestic competitors, like the Ford Pinto and Chevrolet Vega, managed to carve out larger niches despite their own flaws. While the Gremlin X Coupe didn't achieve widespread acclaim, it remains a fascinating chapter in automotive history. The Gremlin showcased AMC's willingness to take risks and experiment with unconventional designs, even if the results weren't always successful. Its boldness has earned it a cult following among enthusiasts who appreciate its quirks. The Gremlin's shortcomings highlighted the importance of balancing creativity with practicality, a lesson that many automakers, including AMC, struggled to apply consistently. The 1970 AMC Gremlin X Coupe was a car that dared to be different, but its stubby design, lackluster performance, and impracticality prevented it from achieving true success. While it remains a quirky icon of 1970s automotive culture, The Gremlin is better remembered as a cautionary tale than a triumph of compact car design. Number 7, 1963, Buick Skylark Coupe. 1963, Buick Skylark Coupe, a car that had the potential to be something special, but ultimately fell short in terms of design and overall appeal. While it was an innovative vehicle for its time, with notable technical features, the Skylark's exterior and interior left much to be desired. By the early 1960s, American automakers were looking to break from traditional designs and innovate with new technologies. The Buick Skylark, first introduced in 1953 as a luxury compact, evolved into a more performance-oriented vehicle by 1963. While Buick attempted to modernize the Skylark, particularly with the introduction of the aluminum V8 engine, the overall execution of the car left a lot to be desired. The 1963 Skylark Coupe is often remembered for its lack of cohesive design. Let's delve into why its styling failed to impress. The Skylark Coupe's body design had a boxy, rigid feel that seemed out of step with the more sculpted lines and aerodynamic shapes of its competitors. In an era when GM's other models, like the Chevrolet Corvette or the Pontiac Tempest, were embracing more fluid and dynamic styling, the Skylark looked almost stale, with its slab-sided panels and sharp angles. The car lacked any sense of elegance or sleekness, making it feel overly utilitarian in a market that was demanding more exciting, visually compelling vehicles. The Skylark's proportions were awkward, particularly with the long front end and short rear deck. The front end was dominated by a large grille and chrome accents that felt excessive, especially when paired with the compact coupe body, creating an imbalance between design and size. The rear end, though styled with an attempt at sharpness, came off as more blocky than bold, lacking the smooth flow seen in other popular models of the era. Inside, the Skylark's cabin felt cheap and outdated. The dashboard was cluttered with uninspiring dials, and the use of low-grade materials made the interior feel more like a budget car than a stylish mid-range coupe. Compared to its competitors, the Skylark's interior lacked the flair and luxury that customers were coming to expect from a Buick. One of the key selling points of the 1963 Buick Skylark was its aluminum V8 engine. While this engine was lighter and more efficient than traditional cast-iron engines, it wasn't enough to redeem the car's other shortcomings. The Skylark's aluminum V8 engine offered decent power for the time, with outputs ranging from 155 to 200 horsepower, depending on the trim. However, while it was innovative in terms of weight reduction, the engine wasn't groundbreaking in terms of performance. It didn't offer the high-output thrills that many buyers were expecting from a mid-size coupe, especially in the face of strong competition from muscle cars like the Ford Mustang and Pontiac GTO. Despite the lightweight nature of the engine, the Skylark still didn't offer the type of nimble or exhilarating driving experience that buyers were craving in a performance-oriented car. The car's suspension and steering setup, though functional, couldn't quite keep up with the expectations for sportiness in an era when cars like the Corvette and the GTO were offering exceptional handling and acceleration. The 1963 Buick Skylark tried to capitalize on innovation, but failed to offer the complete package that buyers were looking for. The combination of boxy design and uninspiring interior made the Skylark feel like a cheaper car than its price point suggested. Though the car was aimed at the mid-range market, competing with vehicles like the Chevrolet Malibu and the Pontiac Tempest, it often felt more like an afterthought rather than a standout choice. While Buick's aluminum V8 was a technical marvel, it didn't fully justify the car's overall design and feel. The Skylark didn't quite manage to stand out in an increasingly competitive market, where innovation in styling, performance, and comfort were rapidly becoming expectations rather than just differentiators. In conclusion, the 1963 Buick Skylark Coupe had the ingredients for success: an innovative engine, a well-known brand, and the backing of a major automaker. However, its boxy design, uninspiring interior, and lackluster performance meant that the Skylark couldn't truly stand out in a rapidly evolving car market. While the aluminum V8 was a notable achievement, it wasn't enough to overcome the other shortcomings that held the Skylark back. Today, the 1963 Skylark is remembered as a car that was ahead of its time technically, but whose design and driving experience left much to be desired. Number 6. 1973 Pontiac Grand Am Coupe. 1973 Pontiac Grand Am Coupe, a car that tried to capture the spirit of the muscle car era, but ultimately failed to meet the expectations set by its predecessors. Though it had potential, the Grand Am Coupe suffered from several design and performance issues that led to its lack of success in the marketplace. By the early 1970s, the American automotive industry was undergoing significant changes. The muscle car era, which had peaked in the late 1960s, was beginning to wind down, and automakers were facing increasing pressures from new government regulations, particularly stricter emission standards. The Pontiac Grand Am Coupe, introduced in 1973, was part of an attempt to bridge the gap between the high-performance models of the past and the more conservative, economy-oriented designs of the future. The Grand Am Coupe, however, ended up being an oversized, heavy, and uninspired offering that failed to live up to the legacy of Pontiac's previous muscle cars. Let's break down the specific flaws that caused the Grand Am to fall short. The 1973 Grand Am Coupe was a hefty car, which was a departure from the more agile and athletic muscle cars of the 1960s. The car's bulk contributed to a sluggish driving experience, especially in an era when performance was still a major selling point. In fact, the Grand Am's weight meant that even with its larger engine options, the car never felt as responsive or nimble as its competitors in the midsize segment. One of the most noticeable flaws of the Grand Am Coupe was its awkward front-end design. The overly large front grille, with its bulky angular shape, gave the car a dumpy look that didn't match the sleek, aggressive lines expected from a Pontiac. The overall front-end treatment, while attempting to look modern, lacked the elegance or boldness of other contemporaries in the market, and ended up contributing to the car's unattractive profile. While the car's front end was the most glaring issue, the rear styling of the Grand Am was equally uninspired. The rear end, with its boxy design and flat, unbroken lines, made the car look heavy and unrefined. In comparison to other coupes in the market, the Grand Am's rear was far too plain and lacked the design flourishes that could have made it stand out. The 1973 Pontiac Grand Am was available with a range of engine options, including a 350 V8. While these engines had decent power, they were no match for the high-performance models Pontiac had previously built. The Grand Am's engines were tuned for comfort and economy, rather than the raw, exhilarating power that the Pontiac brand had come to be known for. This shift in focus left many buyers disappointed, as they were expecting the kind of muscular acceleration and handling that Pontiac had delivered with cars like the GTO and Firebird. Instead, they got a car that was sluggish, overly heavy, and uninspiring on the road. The Grand Am Coupe's handling left much to be desired, as its larger size and heavy weight made it feel sluggish around corners and on winding roads. In an era when cars like the Chevrolet Camaro and Ford Mustang were delivering impressive handling and performance, the Grand Am's more relaxed, underpowered nature made it feel outdated and less engaging to drive. Instead of the precision and excitement expected from a car bearing the Pontiac nameplate, the Grand Am felt more like a bloated, overbuilt sedan than a true performance coupe. The 1973 Grand Am entered a market that was becoming more focused on practicality, fuel efficiency, and economy. The muscle car era was fading, and consumers were looking for more balanced cars that offered a mix of power, efficiency, and everyday usability. However, the Grand Am failed to strike the right balance. While it attempted to bring back the performance of the past, its excessive size and weight made it less appealing in an era that was shifting towards smaller, more efficient vehicles. The Grand Am Coupe's lack of a distinct identity contributed to its failure. While it was meant to be a performance coupe, it didn't have the edge or the excitement of its competitors, nor did it have the refinement of more luxury-oriented cars. The car was caught between two worlds. It wanted to be a modern muscle car, but didn't have the muscle, and it tried to offer luxury without the luxury refinement. This confusion in purpose led to a car that didn't fully satisfy any one market segment. In conclusion, the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am Coupe was a car that tried to capitalize on the muscle car legacy, but ultimately failed to live up to the expectations. Its oversized heavy body, uninspiring front end, and dull driving experience made it unpopular with consumers. Though the car tried to offer a combination of performance and luxury, it ended up feeling like neither. Number 5, 1971 Mercury Cougar XR7 Coupe. 1971 Mercury Cougar XR7 Coupe, a car that represents a significant turning point for Mercury's Cougar lineup. Originally introduced in the mid-1960s as a sleek, performance-oriented vehicle, the Cougar became increasingly bloated and luxury-focused by 1971, losing much of its original appeal. First, let's take a moment to understand what the Mercury Cougar stood for when it was introduced in 1967. The Cougar was Mercury's attempt to create a more refined alternative to the Ford Mustang, offering a similar pony car experience, but with a touch of luxury and sophistication. The car was sleek, stylish, and well-equipped, and it was targeted at buyers who wanted performance, but also appreciated comfort and elegance. However, by 1971, the Cougar's identity had changed. Let's break down what went wrong with the 1971 Cougar XR7 and how it evolved into a car that no longer felt like the sporty option it once was. The 1971 Mercury Cougar XR7 was a departure from the more compact athletic lines of its predecessors. The car grew in size, becoming larger and bulkier as it evolved into a full-size luxury coupe. The addition of longer fenders and a more prominent rear end made the Cougar look bloated rather than agile, causing it to lose the streamlined, nimble appearance that had originally appealed to buyers. While the Cougar XR7 was still equipped with a powerful V8 engine, its design changes emphasized luxury over performance. The aggressive, muscular styling that had been a hallmark of the original Cougar was replaced by more rounded, less daring lines, giving the car a more conservative, subdued look. The front end became larger and more refined, with a massive grille and elegant chrome detailing, while the rear end was similarly exaggerated, with a larger, more cumbersome tail that didn't align with the sporty nature of earlier models. The Cougar XR7 began to prioritize luxury features over the raw performance that had once defined it. Wood accents, plush leather interiors, and an emphasis on comfort made the XR7 feel more like a cruiser than a performance car. As a result, it appealed to an older demographic who preferred comfort and refinement over sportiness and agility. Despite being equipped with a variety of engine options, including a 351 cubic inch V8, the 1971 Cougar XR7 lost the sharp handling and nimbleness that the original Cougar had been known for. The car's larger dimensions and heavier weight made it sluggish on the road, and the driving experience became less engaging. While the car had decent power under the hood, it lacked the quick, responsive handling that many drivers expected from a performance-oriented vehicle. The emphasis on luxury features also affected the car's performance. The suspension and chassis tuning were tuned more for comfort than for sharp cornering or thrilling acceleration. The result was a car that, while powerful, failed to deliver the agile and exciting driving experience that the Cougar's original sporty persona had promised. By 1971, the Cougar had become a car primarily aimed at older buyers looking for a more comfortable, refined driving experience. The sporty edge that had attracted younger buyers when the Cougar was first introduced had largely disappeared. The Cougar's appeal to an older, more conservative audience marked a shift in its identity, one that would alienate the younger buyers who had initially helped define its success. As the Cougar shifted toward luxury, it found itself in competition with more established luxury marques. Cars like the Buick Riviera and Cadillac Eldorado were offering better luxury features, while competitors like the Mustang Mach-1 and Chevrolet Camaro SS were still delivering on performance. The Cougar was caught between these two worlds, neither luxury nor performance, and this left it without a clear identity in the market. The shift from sporty to luxury caused the Cougar to lose its competitive edge in both categories, making it harder for the car to stand out in a crowded market. In conclusion, the 1971 Mercury Cougar XR7 Coupe marked a significant misstep in the Cougar's evolution. Once a sporty, performance-oriented alternative to the Mustang, the Cougar had grown into a bulky, luxury-focused vehicle that lost much of its original appeal. While the XR7 offered comfort, style, and power, it did so at the expense of the performance and driving excitement that had originally made it stand out. By catering to an older demographic and shifting its focus toward luxury, the 1971 Cougar XR7 alienated the younger buyers who had previously embraced its sportier edge. This loss of identity, combined with its larger size and less exciting driving experience, left the Cougar XR7 as a car that was no longer a contender in the performance coupe market. The 1971 Mercury Cougar XR7 is a perfect example of a car that, in trying to evolve, lost the qualities that made it special. Number 4. 1974 Chevrolet Vega GT Coupe. 1974 Chevrolet Vega GT Coupe, a car that had high hopes of competing in the sporty compact coupe market, but ultimately failed to live up to expectations. The Vega was touted as a fresh, economical option for buyers seeking performance in a small, affordable package. However, a combination of poor build quality, reliability issues, and disappointing performance doomed the Vega to be remembered as a cautionary tale in automotive history. When Chevrolet first introduced the Vega in 1970, it was presented as a new kind of compact car, an affordable, sporty alternative to the more pedestrian offerings of the era. The Vega GT Coupe was supposed to capitalize on this promise, offering a sporty look and feel, along with improved performance. The GT version was designed to appeal to a younger, more performance-oriented audience, featuring a sportier suspension, a more aggressive stance, and a sleek coupe body. One of the most significant flaws of the Vega GT Coupe was its aluminum engine, which was the product of an ambitious but ultimately disastrous engineering decision. While the idea of an aluminum engine was appealing for its potential to reduce weight, the material proved to be prone to warping and wearing down prematurely. The engine's poor durability led to frequent overheating, blown head gaskets, and oil leaks, which made the car unreliable and costly to maintain. As the years went by, the reputation of the Vega became synonymous with engine failure, and this marked a major blow to its sporty image. Another major flaw that plagued the 1974 Vega GT Coupe was its poor build quality. The car's body was prone to rust, especially in areas like the wheel wells, rocker panels, and door sills. The combination of cheap materials and poor craftsmanship meant that many Vegas began rusting within a few years of purchase, making them a poor investment for those who lived in colder climates or near saltwater. This rust problem was so widespread that it became one of the defining characteristics of the Vega, making it less attractive as a used car and adding to its overall reputation as an unreliable vehicle. Despite its sporty intentions, the Vega GT Coupe failed to deliver on performance. The base engine offered only 90 horsepower, which made the car sluggish and underpowered, especially for buyers expecting a fun, sporty driving experience. Even though the Vega GT featured a sportier suspension and some performance enhancements, the car's lack of power made it feel more like an economy car than a true performance vehicle. The Vega GT's handling, while somewhat competent, could not make up for its lack of acceleration, and the car often felt lethargic when pushed hard. While the Vega GT featured a sportier suspension and design elements intended to make it more agile, the car's overall driving dynamics left much to be desired. The small engine and unrefined suspension meant that the car didn't feel as connected to the road as its competitors. The steering was often described as vague, and the car's suspension didn't provide the kind of responsive handling that was expected of a sporty coupe. In essence, the Vega GT was more about style than substance, and its lack of a truly exciting driving experience left it feeling underwhelming. Despite the initial hype, the 1974 Chevrolet Vega GT Coupe quickly became a symbol of poor reliability in the automotive world. The combination of mechanical failures, rust problems, and subpar build quality resulted in a car that became notorious for breaking down. As more and more Vega owners experienced engine issues, rusting, and other defects, the Vega's reputation suffered, and the car became synonymous with poor quality. While some owners may have enjoyed the car's styling and initial performance, the long-term costs and frustrations associated with owning a Vega made it a poor choice for many buyers. As the 1970s progressed, Chevrolet struggled to improve the Vega's reputation, but by the time the car was discontinued in 1977, it was too late. The Vega never managed to overcome the build quality issues that plagued it from the start, and the car was largely forgotten in the wake of more reliable, higher-performing competitors. Its failure to establish itself as a truly sporty, compact coupe meant that the Vega's legacy was defined more by its flaws than by any lasting impact on the market. In conclusion, the 1974 Chevrolet Vega GT Coupe represents a missed opportunity for Chevrolet to create a truly exciting and reliable sporty compact. While the car was initially marketed as an affordable, performance-oriented option for younger buyers, its poor build quality, engine reliability issues, and underwhelming performance quickly turned it into a disappointment. The Vega's rust issues, aluminum engine problems, and lackluster driving experience sealed its fate as one of the more unfortunate cars in Chevrolet's history. Number 3, 1966 Ford Thunderbird Landau. 1966 Ford Thunderbird Landau, a vehicle that tried to combine sporty performance with luxury, but ended up falling short of its aspirations. The Thunderbird had always been a model known for its elegance and performance. But with the 1966 Landau edition, Ford made some design decisions that ultimately undermined its original concept. Overloaded with unnecessary luxury details, it became a car that felt more like a heavy cruiser than the sleek, sporty vehicle it was meant to be. Before diving into the specifics of the 1966 Ford Thunderbird Landau, it's important to understand the history of the Thunderbird itself. Since its introduction in 1955, the Thunderbird had evolved from a small, sporty roadster to a more luxurious, full-sized personal car. By the mid-1960s, it had cemented its place as an icon of American automotive design, known for its performance, style, and cutting-edge features. By 1966, Ford made the decision to offer a Landau version of the Thunderbird, a trim that aimed to add an extra layer of luxury, comfort, and, in many cases, unnecessary design flourishes. While the Thunderbird had always been a blend of luxury and performance, the Landau edition took that concept in a direction that many enthusiasts felt was a mistake. One of the defining features of the 1966 Thunderbird Landau was its vinyl roof, which was a popular feature on luxury cars of the era. The vinyl roof added an element of old-world charm and a sense of luxury, but it was also seen as a superficial styling choice that didn't add any real substance. While the vinyl roof was meant to evoke the look of a more prestigious, high-end luxury car, it came off as a bit tacky, especially in a vehicle that was already quite large and imposing. The roof was essentially a faux luxury detail, and it added weight and maintenance issues without contributing to the car's performance or aesthetic in a meaningful way. The rear pillars of the 1966 Thunderbird Landau also suffered from a lack of cohesion in design. The C-pillars, the rear side pillars of the car, were bulky and awkwardly shaped, creating a disjointed look that disrupted the otherwise smooth lines of the Thunderbird's body. These clumsy pillars added to the car's overall sense of bulk and made the vehicle appear less streamlined. The rear end was weighted down by these proportional missteps, making the car feel less agile and more like an overstuffed luxury liner than a sporty, elegant coupe. The Thunderbird had always been celebrated for its sleekness and sporty character. The 1966 Thunderbird Landau, however, began to lean too far into luxury and comfort, losing the muscular appeal that made the Thunderbird special. The Landau's oversized presence, excessive chrome trim, and faux luxury details began to weigh down the car's appearance, giving it a less athletic, more cumbersome look. It had all the hallmarks of a car designed to cater to those seeking luxury, but at the cost of the sporty charisma that had initially made the Thunderbird stand out. While the Thunderbird Landau was still equipped with a powerful V8 engine, the car's added luxury features and larger dimensions took their toll on its overall performance. The weight of the vinyl roof, luxury interior details, and heavy rear structure detracted from the vehicle's ability to perform as quickly and nimbly as earlier models. The Landau edition felt more like a grand tour than a performance coupe, and for a car that had once been heralded for its sporty nature, This felt like a step in the wrong direction. When the Thunderbird Landau was introduced in 1966, it seemed like a promising idea, a more luxurious version of an already well-established sporty car. However, it soon became clear that it was a misstep in the Thunderbird's design evolution. The Landau's over-the-top luxury features and unbalanced design made it feel more like an attempt to mask the car's inherent flaws than to enhance its character. Many enthusiasts began to feel that the Thunderbird was losing its identity and becoming a luxury cruiser rather than the sharp, stylish car it had once been. The Landau's emphasis on superficial luxury diminished the sporty, performance-oriented soul of the car, and the Thunderbird began to feel like a car for people who wanted a status symbol, not an exhilarating driving experience. In conclusion, the 1966 Ford Thunderbird Landau represents a moment in automotive history where the pursuit of luxury overshadowed the core values that made a car great. By overloading the Thunderbird with faux luxury features, such as the vinyl roof and awkward rear pillars, Ford compromised the very qualities that had made the Thunderbird such an iconic vehicle. Number 2. 1975 Ford Elite Coupe. The 1975 Ford Elite Coupe. Marketed as a personal luxury coupe, this car aimed to combine style, comfort, and performance into one package. However, it quickly became apparent that the Ford Elite failed to live up to the lofty expectations of its segment. Uninspired, underperforming, and with bland styling, the Elite struggled to make a lasting impression, fading into the background of the personal luxury car market of the mid-1970s. Before we get into the flaws of the 1975 Ford Elite Coupe, it's important to understand its intended role in the marketplace. In the early 1970s, Ford wanted to tap into the growing demand for personal luxury coupes, vehicles that combine sporty aesthetics with the comfort and luxury features expected from higher-end sedans. Ford already had success with the Thunderbird in this space, and the Elite was intended to expand upon that success, offering a more refined, more subtle alternative to the flashier, larger Thunderbird. The Elite was essentially a rebadged version of the Ford Torino, a mid-size car with a sporty edge. The key difference with the Elite was its focus on being a personal luxury coupe, one that combined some of the best aspects of both sportiness and comfort. Unfortunately, the execution of this concept was lacking in several key areas. The 1975 Ford Elite came equipped with a range of V8 engines, but none of them were particularly powerful or exciting. The base engine, a 351 cubic inch V8, produced a modest 145 horsepower. While that number might have been acceptable for a family sedan or a more practical vehicle, it was insufficient for a luxury coupe that was supposed to combine both performance and comfort. Even when you stepped up to the 400 or 460 cubic inch V8 options, the performance didn't live up to the expectations of buyers who were used to more spirited driving experiences from their luxury cars. The Elite never quite had the punch to back up its luxury coupe claims. Despite the luxury intentions, the Elite's driving experience was underwhelming. The torque-heavy V8s didn't offer the kind of quick acceleration or responsive handling that owners expected from a car marketed as a personal luxury coupe. The Elite was more about smooth cruising than about spirited performance, and that lack of excitement hurt its appeal in a market that was increasingly favoring cars with more engaging driving experiences. In the world of luxury coupes, styling was crucial, and the Ford Elite missed the mark here. The Elite's exterior design was not just bland, it was forgettable. Unlike competitors like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo, which had sharp, distinctive lines, or the Buick Regal, which offered sleek proportions, the Elite seemed to fade into the background. It featured a large, bulky front end with a boxy roofline, and while it was undeniably a big car, it lacked the graceful elegance that a personal luxury coupe demanded. The styling felt more like an attempt to make an average car look fancier rather than a truly inspired, iconic design. Moving to the interior, the Ford Elite didn't offer much more in terms of differentiation. While it was intended to be a luxury vehicle, the interior was plain and did not provide the level of refinement expected from a car in its class. The materials were subpar, with cheap plastic trim, and the overall layout was utilitarian. There was also an issue with comfort. While it was decently equipped, the Elite's seats lacked the plushness of other luxury models in the market, making the driving experience less comfortable and more akin to an ordinary sedan. Perhaps the biggest problem with the 1975 Ford Elite was its lack of identity. It wasn't sporty enough to compete with cars like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo, and it wasn't luxurious enough to stand out from the competition from Chrysler and Buick. The Elite was essentially lost in a sea of other personal luxury coupes without the defining characteristics that made it memorable. Its styling was forgettable, its performance lackluster, and its luxury credentials weak. It didn't have anything to make it stand out in a crowded market, and as a result, it became a footnote in Ford's history rather than a vehicle that left a lasting impression. In conclusion, the 1975 Ford Elite Coupe represents a missed opportunity in the personal luxury coupe segment. Marketed as a blend of sportiness and luxury, the Elite failed to deliver on both fronts. It offered uninspiring performance, bland styling, and lackluster interior features that didn't set it apart from the competition. It wasn't sporty enough to excite driving enthusiasts, nor was it luxurious enough to appeal to those seeking elegance and comfort. The Ford Elite quickly faded into obscurity, overshadowed by more successful models in Ford's lineup and its competitors' offerings. The car serves as a reminder that simply offering a vehicle with a luxury trim isn't enough. It must also have a distinctive design. Number 1. 1972 Oldsmobile Cutless Supreme Coupe. 1972 Oldsmobile Cutless Supreme Coupe. A car that marked the beginning of a shift away from the more thrilling, performance-focused vehicles that Oldsmobile was known for in the 1960s. While the Cutless Supreme was once the epitome of style and performance, the 1972 model represents a time when the car became less exciting, overly heavy, and lacked the sharp handling and appeal that once made it a standout. In fact, the 1972 Cutless Supreme can be seen as a prime example of how automakers in the early 1970s began sacrificing performance and handling for comfort and luxury to the detriment of driving excitement. By the time the 1972 Oldsmobile Cutless Supreme hit the streets, the muscle car era was drawing to a close. The 1970s brought about significant changes in consumer expectations, and in turn, the American auto industry responded by focusing more on comfort and luxury features, while downplaying the high-performance characteristics that once defined muscle cars. The Cutless Supreme was part of this larger trend. As one of Oldsmobile's top-tier models, it was designed to offer luxury features like plush interiors, soft rides, and more modern amenities. But in doing so, the 1972 Cutless Supreme lost much of the sporty edge that made earlier models of the Cutless so appealing to performance-minded drivers. One of the biggest issues with the 1972 Cutless Supreme was its weight. As with many cars from the early 1970s, increased safety features, along with luxury appointments, made the car heavier than its predecessors. This extra mass had a significant impact on the car's performance. The Cutless Supreme became sluggish and lacked the agility that earlier versions, like the 1968 model, had possessed. While it wasn't necessarily a slow car, its overweight design detracted from its ability to handle tight corners and deliver the same kind of driving excitement that made it stand out in the past. The 1972 Cutless Supreme was offered with a variety of engines, but none of them had the same raw power that earlier models boasted. The standard V8 engine was decent, but it didn't offer the same kind of high-performance thrills that people had come to expect from the Cutless name. Even when equipped with more powerful engines, the handling and suspension systems of the 1972 model weren't tuned for the kind of spirited driving that would have complemented the engine's power. It was clear that Oldsmobile had shifted its focus from building a car that was fun to drive to one that was designed to deliver a cushy, comfortable ride, even if that meant sacrificing the sportiness that made the car's predecessors so engaging. The suspension tuning of the 1972 Cutless Supreme was aimed more at providing a smooth ride rather than handling sharp turns or delivering cornering capabilities that one would expect in a sporty coupe. This shift towards comfort over performance resulted in a car that felt soft, heavy, and unresponsive compared to the more agile and tight-handling muscle cars of the previous decade. For buyers who still wanted a car that could offer a bit of excitement, the 1972 Cutless Supreme failed to deliver. While styling is always a matter of taste, the 1972 Cutless Supreme did not have the same flair or striking presence as the earlier models. The lines were more conservative, and while the car retained the classic cut-off roof styling, the overall shape of the car appeared somewhat boxy and unremarkable. The car seemed to lack the sleekness or the aggressive stance that had previously defined it as a muscle car. It was instead trying to occupy a middle ground between luxury and performance, but ended up looking bland and uninspired. The 1972 Cutless Supreme also struggled to stand out visually in a segment full of competitors vying for attention. The lack of bold features like the muscle car scoops or sporty body lines made the Cutless Supreme appear to be just another big, boxy coupe, easily lost in a sea of other mid-sized luxury cars of the era. When placed next to competitors like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo or the Pontiac Grand Prix, the 1972 Cutless Supreme lacked the striking presence that could make it stand out. It felt more like a tame, luxury sedan rather than a sporty coupe. In conclusion, the 1972 Oldsmobile Cutless Supreme Coupe represents a significant shift in automotive design, one that many would argue moved the model away from the excitement and performance of its predecessors. By opting for a softer, more comfortable ride, the Cutless Supreme lost much of its appeal as a performance coupe, replacing sharp handling with a bland, overweight presence that didn't stand out in the competitive market of the early 1970s. Despite its luxurious intentions, the 1972 Cutless Supreme failed to capture the excitement that made the Cutless nameplate famous. It lacked the sportiness and agility of earlier models, and its styling felt conservative at best.